is polygamy really better than monogamy, Coach Nazir? Now, I had thought about it and I initially answered it one way in the past. And, again, we're simply pro morals and so on. And you know what? But the more I think about it, the more I thought about it. And when you age and you get a little bit more wisdom, you say, absolutely. Yes, polygyny is far better than monogamy.
Warning, viewer discretion is advised. The content, views, and educational material you are about to experience could challenge your belief, trigger strong emotions, and frankly, piss you off. This isn't for everyone. If you're not ready to confront new ideas, or if your feelings bruise easily, this might be the time to click away. Expect to be challenged, to think, and you might even want to scream at the screen. Proceed with caution, and remember, you chose to be here. Let's get it.
Assalamu alaikum, peace. I am Coach Nazir, one of the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships, as well as one of the authors of the book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. If you don't have your copy, what are you waiting on? Let's talk polygamy.com. I want to focus on this statement, and I'm going to say something that's probably unpopular, though that won't be anything new for this channel. There is this idea that, you're not selfish if you just don't want polygamy for you. Like, I'm not against polygamy. I just don't want it for me. That doesn't make me selfish. And other people are like, oh yeah, that calls into question your iman or your faith, or that calls into question really who you are. Then some people say, well, don't shame me for not wanting it and so on. So there's this argument that's pretty interesting. So I'm going to share my take. So the question really kind of at hand is, am I selfish if I don't want polygyny for myself? And generally speaking, no, you're not necessarily selfish. Okay. It makes sense. We understand the rationale behind it. However, the term selfish can mean a number of different things. It's pretty subjective. But I'm going to jump in and say something to the contrary. I'll say, all right, let me ask you a question. How important is marriage for society? Today, yesterday, tomorrow. How important is marriage? Now, we know if you look at statistics, people are marrying less and less during these modern times. So much so that many people aren't even procreating enough to replace themselves. Generally, populations who are more deserving of disappearing anyway. So it's what it is. I'm not going to go too much into that. But what I will say is that, how important is marriage to society? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that it's absolutely important and essential for families, nuclear families, men and women, to marry each other and procreate, have children. How important is that? Now, if you're anywhere above a 7, which most people probably are, I would agree with you. I say, you know what? That is a great assessment. Looking at history, looking at current times and challenges and things that we have, looking at problems with broken homes, single parent homes, specifically single mother-led homes. Marriage is very important, all right? Now, not just marriage, because of course you want to have a healthy marriage with someone as a man, a father figure, somebody who's a good leader in leading the family. Now my question goes a little bit further. So if marriage is important to you, again, 7 or better, then why would you be against a form of marriage? A form of marriage for the nuclear family. Matter of fact, a form of marriage that grows families exponentially versus just linearly. So that means polygyny. All right. So as a Muslim, a man can marry up to 4 wives simultaneously. Of course, with 4 wives, you can have more children and grow families faster, if you will, versus 1 wife. Now, again, we're not anti-monogamy. We're simply pro-morals. However, since polygamy has been getting, or polygyny, now you might hear me use these terms interchangeably. I know exactly what both of them mean, but many people in our audience may not know it. So before you want to jump in the comments and correct me, let me let you know, polygamy means a spouse who has multiple spouses. Now, polygyny follows under that, but it's more specific because polygyny means a husband who is married to multiple wives, specifically. Now, polyandry means a woman who is married to multiple husbands. We ain't on that, nor does it grow exponentially, nor is that something that has been commonly practiced throughout history. Generally speaking, polygamy has been related to polygyny. So if you didn't know that, now you do. Congrats. Back to the question at hand. Since it can grow a family exponentially, many people are against polygyny, especially women. Again, being more territorial and wanting to protect things and not have a scarcity of resources from that man who traditionally is the one who's providing them. If we're talking about gender roles and the husband being that protector and provider and the one who exerts personal power, then we can see, reasons for jealousy and so on. But however, does that make you selfish? If you're not against polygyny per se, but you're against polygyny for you. Now, the fact of the matter is women don't practice polygyny. And in Islam, women weren't even addressed when it comes to the topic of polygyny. Men were told to marry 2, 3, or 4. But if they fear they cannot do justice, meaning being fair or equitable, then 1. Which is why many scholars say that the asl, the foundation, is 2, 3, or 4. But it starts with 2. The exception to the rule would be 1. But we're not going to get to any debates and stuff like that. That's not what this channel is for. My point is, though, if the family is as important as you say it is, and if it's important to have a nuclear family, a man, a leader, somebody who gets support from his wives so far as raising the children, nurturing the family, providing love, companionship, peace at home, and all this, if that is important, how is it no longer important when it comes to polygyny? Now, of course, you don't necessarily have to have anything for you, but does it make you selfish? Then I get comments, and we get comments and questions and complaints that, what woman that doesn't have low self-esteem would accept something like this, would want something like that? What woman in her right mind usually is how it's prefaced? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you know Samia Suluhu Hassan? I feel the word. Okay, so Samia Suluhu Hassan is the current president of Tanzania. Yeah, president. He served as vice president for several years before becoming president. So she's a black woman president of a country in Africa whose her husband practices polygyny. Now, chronologically speaking, she will be considered the 3rd wife. I don't think she really lacks skills, abilities, intelligence, or self-esteem whatsoever. Yeah, this is just one person. Okay. Perhaps you don't watch movies or involved in any type of following of politics or anything like that. So maybe you just only read things from the Sunnah. Okay, great. So let's go to Habiba. All right. Radiallahu anha. One of our mothers from Ummahatul Mu'mineen, the mothers of the believers. Now, she specifically came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, marry my sister. She asked the Prophet ﷺ, the best person who's ever walked on the face of the planet, to marry her sister. The Prophet ﷺ was surprised by this. He said, you would like that? She said, yes. And why? To go into the rationale of the hadith, either look it up, Google. It's really simple. You're married to the best man. You want the best thing for the best person. So yes, she, in her right mind, wanted the Prophet ﷺ to marry his sister. Now, of course, Islam puts restrictions. You can't marry 2 sisters simultaneously and so on and so forth. So that didn't happen. And it's one of the ways, one of the proofs that we know that is against men marrying 2 women or 2 sisters simultaneously. So with that being said, yeah, women in their right mind actually do want for their sisters what they want for themselves. Now, on the flip side, brothers can't be guilty or trying to guilt sisters like, you should want for your sister what you want for yourself. Because the fact of the matter is, when you, as a man, try to make this polygyny thing all about altruism, or I'm doing it because she needs help, or she's a single mom, or she's a widow, or she's this and this and that, which Muslims, generally Muslims in general, those who are first wives or not married, like to put that up because they want to feel better, feel superior. Because they feel society looks down on someone who's already been divorced, or who's a widow, or who's a single mom, and this is a pity marriage. But I'm not. I ain't no pity marriage. So then polygyny is relegated to this corner when that absolutely is incorrect. Polygyny is simply for families to build a solid foundation for exceptional men. See, they ask also, is polygamy really better than monogamy, Coach Nazir? Now, I had thought about it, and I initially answered it one way in the past. And, again, we're simply pro-morals and so on. And you know what? But the more I think about it, the more I thought about it. And when you age, you get a little bit more wisdom. You say, absolutely. Yes, polygyny is far better than monogamy. So why, Coach Nazir? What do you mean? How dare you say such a thing? Well, if you're Muslim, let me give you my first proof. There's no such thing as monogamy in paradise. There's no monogamy in Jannah. None. Zero. Zilch. Which means, if Jannah has the best things, and it does, things we cannot even fathom, and it does, And we know that monogamy doesn't exist there. It's relegated to down here on earth for men who fear they cannot be fair, be equitable, or be just. Then absolutely, polygyny, just from an Islamic perspective, is better. And men know how they're created. We desire more than one woman anyway. But there's far more responsibilities when it comes to polygyny. That's the other reason why polygyny is actually much more important, because the person wants to practice it healthily, meaning doing the right thing when practicing polygyny, not just some bum that wants to go ahead and be a serial monogamous or just run through women. Clearly, those people aren't watching my channel, because I'm going to hold you accountable as a man as well. All right? It requires men to be more than twice the man. It requires you to have emotional resilience, better leadership, and monogamy doesn't require that. Because it's just a default look. We're yoked, it is what it is, and that's kind of that. Whereas with polygyny, you're still allowed to be a man. What do I mean by that? See, what if right now, all right, I'm married to 2 women, been married to my wives for over 15 years, and been married to Coach Fatimah twice as long as I've been married to Coach Nyla. Both of these are incredible women. But with that being said, what if I wanted to have more children? Now, I'm not necessarily interested in having more children. I'm interested in having my children continue to be married and build this next generation. But let's say I wanted to have more children. They're not in their 20s and 30s to have more children, but that limits and restricts me now, doesn't it? But if I'm supposed to be the leader of the family, I want to expand my family more, have more children. Well, if monogamy is the only way, then I'm stuck, regardless of my resource and everything that I want. All right. If I want to build a legacy, I'm able to provide, I'm able to be fair and so on and so forth. And I'm stuck just with monogamy thinking that I'm limited and restricted and unable to work to build better for future generations, to make this ummah even larger, as Prophet ﷺ suggested that we do. Interesting, isn't it? Puts a different take on it now, doesn't it? See, if you are the type of individual that is questioning whether or not it's selfish to not want it for me, that's okay. You can be that. You can try to tell yourself good stories and whatnot. But we have also far too many women say, when I was younger, I was doing this, or I threw such a big tantrum and really came down on my husband and I threatened all this type of stuff and made sure he would never do it. And then we wonder why men go and have private ceremonies or don't have these discussions or feel emasculated. Only to regret that and say, I really wish I wouldn't have done that, as they got more wise, as they learned a bit more, as they really recognized how important marriage actually is to society. But you don't dictate which form of marriage is more important than the other. That right there is crucial. Because if I look at, and you can look at the data, look at U.S. data statistics when it comes to single parents, specifically single mothers. The reason I say single mother-led households is because if your child is being raised in a single mother-led household, it leads to major problems all across the board. It leads to more school dropouts, promiscuity, more crime, illiteracy, all types of different things. That, generally speaking, in a single father household, doesn't, because a single father household is close to being a 2-parent healthy household results, with children graduating more, doing better, so on and so forth. All right. The stats don't lie. But the fact of the matter is, when men choose to be weak, unfair, unable to do it, or they just capitulate, there's absolutely no wonder that the ummah is in the state that it's in. How are you going to speak justice and speak truth to a ruler or to an oppressor when you can't even grow your family properly without folding because you lack the proper communication skills and the cojones to do so? Is it easy? It's not about whether it's easy. The question you should be asking yourself as a man is it worth it? Is it worth it? And are you going to step up to the occasion and separate from the mediocre masses? If you're that type of person, I encourage you to join me in one of my upcoming polygamy challenges, where you can take things to the next level. With that being said, I want you to quote below. Selfishness. Put below selfishness. If you rock with us this far in the video, you listen to what I had to say, you may agree, disagree, put that in the comments. I'm open to discussion, open to learning, open to growth, open to debating. As long as you're respectful, let's get it. If not, that's more on you. It says more about you than it does about me. With that being said, post selfishness down below in the comments. And if you're looking forward to our challenge and kind of seeing what that's about, then go to polygamychallenge.com. I'm out. I'm Coach Nazir. I'm the coach that helps high performers and professionals develop the confidence, connection, and courage it takes to practice polygyny in a healthy manner so they don't feel dismissed, disrespected, or defeated by getting their shift together. If that's you, get at it. I like to talk. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.